Newsmaker Sunday with Fox 10's John Hook.
Thanks for joining us on Newsmaker Sunday. So much going on in Washington, so much going on in Arizona, and Arizona's congressman, Republican congressman from District 4, Paul Gosar, is our guest this week on Newsmaker Sunday. This is Phoenix, much of the rural western and northwestern portion of the state, a big district. You've got
It
a
is.
lot
We
of...
kind of surround the Phoenix. You know, we're kind of trying to talk ourselves into being called the Spartans of Arizona. We surround the great state of Maricopa.
Right. Right. Okay, let's get right to some of the things that are happening as we steam into the weekend here. The 13 indictments of Russians in the FBI indicts 13 Russians for tampering in the election. What do you make of what's come out? Does it suggest any collusion involving the Trump administration, or does it suggest maybe the opposite?
Not at all. In fact, I've been a proponent of actually saying we want to see what the Mueller aspect has, because it's going to show collusion, but not from the Trump administration. It's going to show from the Hillary Clinton campaign and possibly the previous administration in this regards. So I want to make sure that we have this fully vetted. But once again, you look at Uranium One, you look at the dossier and its fabrication, you look at the involvement of Clinton proteges. Over and over again, this continues to start pushing the narrative that the Hillary Clinton aspect was the one moving this. And by the way, why would Russia want Donald Trump? They got everything they wanted, like with Uranium One, and remember President Obama making the comment on a hot mic with Vladimir Putin right before the 2012 election. After the election, I have more flexibility. So they were taking him to task, and if you have any doubts, look at how much they control of the uranium market now.
Doesn't these indictments almost suggest that the Russians were agnostic about who won and who lost? They just wanted to sow chaos and make Americans distrust their own process?
Well, I don't know that it's just Russians. There's plenty of other groups that were doing the same thing on both sides, Republicans and Democrats, too. You know, the media sources and social media is rampant with this on both sides. So it's not just an interest from them. What I see is a predicated system of problems that I want to have answers to. You know, I watched Fast and Furious. I watched Benghazi. I watched Operation Choke Point. I watched the IRS. I watched the unmasking of American citizens. Something's wrong with this scenario. We're going away from the rule of law. It's not just Russians.
Do you have confidence Robert Mueller will get to the bottom of it?
I don't know. You know, we'll see.
And
you know, he's well decorated. He's well decorated. But, you know, I will tell you, the people that he picked are very partisan. They're known for their Democratic leanings big time. Or maybe that's part of the deal. Maybe what he ends up doing is putting these people, they can't find anything and they have to exhaust it. I don't know. I don't know the man. He comes with higher credentials, but some of the moves that he's actually been doing lead me to suspect his motives.
We had another school shooting. I want to roll tape one. Take a look.
You like start texting your family like I love you, because you never know like if you get shot or killed right there and then.
Another school shooting in Florida. This is the latest in a string that we've seen throughout the nation. Not just school shootings, but what happened in Las Vegas in October. Do you believe there is any law that could stop this?
I don't, John. I think this is a trademark of our times, where we've seen a degradation of the family, we've seen a degradation in the culture, and we've seen a degradation in the rule of law. We've become almost an anarchical system where it's all about the individual. Instead of holding people accountable for their actions, we're trying to say that the government is responsible for that.
How would you, I mean, reflexively, and I Facebooked about this week, reflexively when something happens, people want something done. In a sense, they want action, but sometimes they just want something done to feel like we're doing something.
Right.
Is there anything that can be done to head this off?
Well, I think there's some troubling trends here. We're starting to see the social media posts, if they're true with this individual, because I think one was posted out of Oklahoma. But if they're true, we're constantly behind the eight ball, missing these people.
It's almost like 9/11. He had 39 visits to his house by police.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the FBI was alerted to this guy, and nothing happened.
Absolutely. And so maybe the problem is the way that if we see something, we're not responding and saying something. Maybe there's a glitch within our intelligence services and our law enforcement that's not following up on this. You know, we're seeing cyber attacks all the time, so this is not something new to us. We should be putting our premium resources to this problem. And then last but not least, we have never addressed the mental anxiety that people suffer in this country. Instead of turning them out, we've got to retool that from all segments of our population, whether it be medicine, judiciary, and try to interact with people that suffer from debilitating mental disease.
You know, you're aware, Republicans largely get blamed for not funding mental health services. Do you think that it's a party thing?
I don't. You know, I'm here one of those people that looks at our healthcare system that has got to change. And I don't know what that looks like yet. I don't think anybody does. And the reason being is unless you have everybody participating, whether it be the insurers, whether it be the pharmaceuticals, whether it be the big hospitals, whether it be government, whether it be the states, whether it be doctors and nurses and all allied health, working for a common denominator of a patient-centered focused healthcare system. But the patient has to be empowered too. I can't do it all for them.
You were a dentist before your life in Congress, so you know about this.
You got to meet them halfway. And when I see a lack of competition in the marketplace for healthcare, that's what drives me nuts first, is break them up, make them compete, and then we'll see, you know, what those applications can be, what the new renaissance of insurance and healthcare is for tomorrow can be. But we got to make sure that there's a different priority placed.
You made headlines, and we'll roll tape number 2 here. The State of the Union. You made headlines when you said, if all these folks are going to bring dreamers into Congress, you wanted them checked or thrown out.
I didn't say that. I said illegals. Never did I say dreamers. Never did I say any other word but illegals. When you're confronted with 30 people, 30 of your colleagues saying, I'm bringing an illegal to the State of the Union. When I bring my guest, happened to be Secretary of State Michelle Reagan, she had to show a valid Social Security number to get in. So what I wanted to do is make sure they checked the Social Security numbers, because if they were
of everybody entering.
Absolutely. So if they were truly illegal, they were fraudulent, and they should be arrested because they're stealing. They're stealing an identity of some other person. And if they're not, they're playing games. They're lying to the American public. That's wrong, totally. And in the hallowed grounds of Congress, how shameful is that? You know, Ronald Reagan brought up the comment that when a law is broken, we got to stop blaming the government. We have to start getting back to the people that break the law.
Right.
And when it's Congress, how good are our laws?
Let me ask you on that front. You know, you talk about Congress, hallowed grounds. Roll tape number 4, if you will. Trent Franks was on this program a week before all this stuff broke. Did you have any inkling that this was going on?
Didn't.
Were you shocked?
I was shocked. I still haven't had a chance to spend some time with Trent, to talk to Trent. Trent has wanted has reached out to me to talk to me. So we're trying to facilitate that.
How's he doing? Do you know?
I think I can only tell you because it was a short telephone call. He's hurting. He's hurting, and he wants to make sure that we know there's another side to this story. And I believe I've got to give that. You know, when I first was elected, John, there was a big wave of 2010. Ben Quayle, David Schweikert, myself, all came in that wave. And we had a lot of, you know, there was a lot of hardships trying to figure out what we were doing on this mass pandemonium called the House floor. Trent was one of those people that had every ounce of humaneness to help us, walk us through, explain things to us like a father would. So I've got a big soft spot with Trent Franks in my heart.
You're emotional about this.
I am.
You don't like to see somebody end up destroyed.
I don't think they should be destroyed. I think I said it before, you have to be accountable for what happens. We're all
This is
human.
somebody you really care about. You like him a lot.
He's a great guy. He's a great guy. But we're also all humans.
Let me ask you the question I asked him on this program. I asked him, I said, Congressman, we were talking about the backdrop of, how quick we forget. Minnesota Senator.
Al Franken.
Al Franken. We were talking about the Al Franken stuff and other people who'd resigned. I said, how much of this is going on in Congress? And he said, probably more than we like to think. And I'm sitting here, you know, a week later thinking, wow.
Yeah.
I would have never guessed that he was going to get caught up in this stuff.
No, I agree, John. But this Me Too movement may have gone too far. I want to make sure that everybody's treated professionally, ethically.
Is that happening?
I think it is, but it also, I believe in the rule of law, that you have to, you're innocent until proven guilty. And I think that's the shame that we see here.
A mere allegation now
Mere
is enough
allegation
to...
is, yeah. You know, I mean, everybody that is anybody now is being forecast, oh, they've had this indiscretion or this indiscretion or this indiscretion. That's sad.
Is it disqualifying in your mind? And let me get back to this in regard to the president. The president's got a lot of stuff that's kind of bubbling under the surface here. How much does it trouble you that this could blow up in his face?
It could. I think some of the previous allegations that have been brought up, you know, the famous video that was run.
Access Hollywood.
Access Hollywood. I think people still took that into consideration, and they still elected him. But maybe not so much that they were for him, but they were against the other candidate. But other things that may have come up, I think we have to start looking at that and have that conversation. Once again, we're all humans, and when you look at the travesty of Bill Clinton and other presidents, once again, I think we need to have a come to Jesus moment, the transparency, and go forward.
You know, my dad always kind of said that this issue speaks to ethics,
Yeah.
fidelity, that
Yeah.
it speaks to how ethical someone is. Is it a disqualifying event for someone in the political world? Now, I mean, Bill Clinton survived it.
Yeah.
John Kennedy did it. Nobody, I mean, people knew, but
Yeah.
it wasn't being reported. Do you think it's a disqualifying event? Or should be?
I think we have to look at the totality of the character of the individual, and I think that our system hopefully puts that out so that people make an educated decision. I like this person for the following things. These are the problems that I see with them. I still like them better based upon what I find versus somebody else. I think that's what our system was geared off
It
of.
strikes me we're heading kind of in a European model that way, that politicians are imperfect vessels, just like everyone.
Everybody is. We're
Everybody
human.
is. So we're expecting perfection out of these people in their personal life. But voters are starting to now, and maybe Bill Clinton softened the battlefield where people said, well, you know, I don't like this stuff, but you know what? He's done a nice job, so I'll vote for him again. And we're kind of over that hurdle, maybe.
Well, think about the trajectory of history.
I don't know if it's for better or worse, by the way,
Ronald
Congressman.
Reagan
I don't
was
know.
the first person that divorced and
right.
became president. So we're seeing this different trajectory into the future based upon what inference we put on marriage, the family, our communities, you know, adhering to the rule of law. There are so many things happening here that I don't think it is all blessed on one thing. But I think this is a conversation that needs to come out and talk about ethics. Is it ethical to have an affair? Is it unethical to demean somebody by the way the tone of their chatter on Facebook? You know, character assassination. All these things have to play into those aspects.
You've run into this on your Facebook.
Absolutely.
You have blocked people, and
Yep.
they've gotten really upset with you,
Yep.
saying as a public servant, you've got to let it fly and let everybody have their voice. You owe them that. Do you?
Within reason. There's always ground rules. And we spent time with Facebook looking at those ground rules. And so last time I looked, everybody was ashamed of people being bullied, even on Facebook. In fact, there's the lawsuit that actually a young man committed suicide based upon bullying. And the gal that actually instituted it was convicted and found guilty. So our parameters is watch the language. Number two is if you start bullying, you're blocked. The discussion is fine. As you know, I grew up in a very different household. There's 10 of us. There's 7 extremely left Democrats. I'm one of probably 2 very, conservative Republicans.
Right.
So
There was a lot of political discussion
there is a
at
lot
the table.
of political
Pardon me, I'm
discussion,
turning
yeah.
my phone
Yeah.
off. I violated the first order of my own program.
Well, thank God I'm not. The great gentleman from Alaska.
This thing is it's a curse. Okay,
Yeah.
pardon
But
me,
I mean,
Congressman.
So I actually see that. And so in order to have that conversation, you want the public conversation. But you don't want to demean somebody for the way they feel and the concepts that they hold.
It's interesting you say this because we get this in our world.
Yeah.
And kind of the standard is, my standard is, I will let it fly. I'll leave even the worst stuff up. But if it becomes really, really abusive and repetitive abuse, I will finally block. I really hate to do it. And I've only done it, I've got like 5 that I've blocked.
Well, and some of those people that were really upset actually acknowledged they used very profound and profane language. So isn't that interesting? You know, but the context of free speech isn't just that I have to provide you, if you're the painter, not only the paints, but the palette, the canvas, and the art gallery. No. That's not the way the First Amendment speaks.
Okay, so you're saying we can have discourse, but you can't abuse me.
The public sphere is for equal opportunity to display and to converse about your views. It is not about saying, listen, because you're a racist, because you're this, and utilizing language that is inflammatory, derogatorily, and bullying. You cannot do that.
So you won't allow it?
And
you make no apologies for it.
I make no apologies about it.
All right, Congressman Paul Gosar, when we come back, we're going to talk about, is there a path, not to citizenship, but a path for the dreamers somewhere out there in Congress? Is that going to happen? Is it possible? And maybe that does involve a path to citizenship. We're going to talk about it with Congressman Paul Gosar, representative from Arizona's 4th District. Back in a minute. Paul Gosar is a congressman from Arizona's 4th District. He was in the 1st District beginning his career in Congress. He came out of the private sector, never had held public office, I don't believe. 2011 to 2013, and then went to Arizona District 4 in 2013. Okay, let's talk about the Dreamers, DACA. Tape number 3. Do you believe that there is still a deal out there that could be made to address this issue? Or do you think that there's haste right now to get a deal?
I don't think you actually need a deal to solve this problem. I think that what we can do is that the DACA, the deferred action individuals, want some certainty that they're not going to be deported. I think there's a term that we utilized during World War II called a visitor status, that we could allow these people to stay under that visitor status. It would also help us bring in the people that are visa overstays, that are 45% of the illegals in this country, have them certify that they have no misdemeanors or felonies, they're not taking public assistance if they have a job that their employer vouches for them, and that they have citizens vouching for them.
They would be visitors, but no path to citizenship.
Absolutely. And then go back, because we are so broken in that immigration system, we got to go back to the legal entities. Why would I take a group of victims and cut the line on millions of people trying to do it the legal way? Why does it take decades to go through our legal system?
Why does
Hundreds of thousands. That's what I want to find out. So I want to give, there's some certainty. Let's go back to what the legal status takes, rebuild that. Maybe you're going to find that these people will facilitate underneath that. But don't let them cut to the front of the line. Work with these people. But you have a lot of other issues, John. You have to have, what's the sovereign country's adjudication over its borders? It has to be sovereign. So we can't even have this conversation until we take California to court. That's no different than what the Civil War was, what they've done. No different than what we've seen in the 60s with
You're talking about taking California to court over their lack of enforcement?
No, actually even worse than that. If you're a business and you comply with federal immigration, you go to jail and are filed lawsuits against by the state of California. You can't be against SB 1070 and for what California's doing. Can't do it. Because we got to make sure that the federal doctrine is federal doctrine. What the federal government is espoused to do, they take care of. But we have, I love legal immigration. Love legal immigration.
Legal.
Legal. My problem is once again, is you made a comment earlier when we were waiting. Dreamer, is it a sufficing term? Not really. Mark Levin actually brings up a great aspect. When it's the left side, it's always angelic. But when it's a Republican or conservative viewpoint or a name, it's always devilish. So you get that misnomer. So Here's my point. I actually highlighted John Lott's criminology report based on Arizona, because we don't know who these people are.
We think there's about 52,000 DACA or Dreamers here.
Yes, okay. We don't know anything about them. They came in under the guise, they've been living in the shadows, and that's not my words, that's the Democrats' words. We don't know who they are. And so you ought to know who you're inviting into your country. You ought to know who...
Haven't we set this up, though, in terms of legislation that they would have to have a clean criminal record? They couldn't have any criminal record.
They could. I mean, but once again, don't you want to know that? And that's why the first thing that we saw was this criminology report looking at data compiled by the Justice Department under Obama, looking at Arizona-specific aspects for these individuals under deferred status.
And what do we find?
We're finding that they're not these angelic aspects, that the criminology is actually higher for criminal intent.
Than the average population?
Absolutely.
Because we've been told that's not true, that for people in the country illegally, they tend to keep their nose clean because they don't want to get found out. They don't want to be deported.
That's why one of the things that this report debunks, it's the first report of its kind. We need more reports to find out what this are.
Quick thing on DACA, and we'll move on. Are we under a misperception that the people here illegally want to become U.S. citizens? We keep talking about this path to citizenship. My sense is there are a lot of people who want to work here and not necessarily be trapped here and stay here.
I think you're very dead on. When we start looking at these facts, slightly over 40% actually speak English fluently. So if this was the only country you knew, how is it that you don't speak fluent English? It's the language of opportunity.
It takes time.
It does take time, but if this is all you ever knew, you're going to be very proficient with English to get around. So from that standpoint, I think you have to know, you have to build a system that once again rewards legal immigration.
Okay. And do you believe that this will happen in this Congress? Do you think it will happen?
I don't.
You don't?
I don't. I don't see us addressing this in the right format. I think people have a big heart for people wanting to come to this country because they see their roots coming from immigrants across the seas and different lands, but they don't see the same application cutting in front of legal immigration. These are a set of victims. These are the bigger set of victims, and we ought to look at what it does. What made our country great, John, was
immigration.
The rule of law.
Yeah, and the rule of law.
Everybody
but we did build this
How do I
country
tell
on
them
immigrants.
that when I look at Hillary Clinton and the mess that she's created?
We're back in a minute with Congressman Paul Gosar. Final moments on Newsmaker Sunday. Final moments with Arizona Congressman Paul Gosar. The debt and deficit trouble me deeply. I think it should trouble everyone. We're up to 21 trillion. Boy, wouldn't that be nice? 21 trillion.
Yep.
Is anybody going to get on this? And when you get on it, we're talking about 65% of the budget now. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. If you tinker with those that are big drivers here, you're endangering yourself as a politician.
You are, but we've had this conversation in my district. If you're going to have a town hall with me, you're going to hear and visit these programs, Medicare and Social Security in particular. But I want to set good ground rules. In order for me to have reformation for my senior citizens with Social Security and Medicare, I got to show that I can do those same things with the military and with discretionary spending. So I want to walk a mile in my moccasins, set that example straight. So if I'm spending 20 cents out of every dollar that's wasted in the military, shame on me. We need to start turning some of those back. And I've been one of those people that put amendments forward that actually allows those agencies to transparently find it, keep it, and save it. Okay? We got to do that. And you can't just randomly attack Social Security and Medicare without doing that.
Are we, the predicate, we've got 30 seconds. The idea has been tax cuts, and then with increased revenue, you can start to talk about these things. Do you think that's coming?
It is, because you can solve this problem with Social Security very easily when you have a dynamic economy where people are putting more in their withholding taxes into the system.
Right.
So you can make that more solvent and then raising the age.
You
Fairly
believe
simple.
this conversation is coming?
It is. And then Medicare. I believe you can have a great conversation about solvency of Medicare because we don't know what the possibilities are. If you break up the monopolies of the insurance industry, the pharmaceuticals, and the big hospitals, it's amazing what can be playing for you.
We're going to have you back. Thank you. Good
You're
to
welcome.
see you again. Congressman Paul Gosar, our guest this week on Newsmaker Sunday. We'll see you next week.